Welcome patrons! About a month ago I received a PM from Reddit user Solusofthenight who opens up their message with, "So I have a pet theory I think you might find interesting." And they were right. So today, honored patrons, we have our first user submitted theory this week. So bring out your tinfoil guys, it's about to get out there. The theory. Corypheus manipulated Anders into blowing up the chantry, which allowed him to rise to power in the south. Expanding a bit more on this, it's been proven time and time again that Corypheus is able to control, manipulate, and possess those with enough taint in their blood. Even Anders, who is possessed with the spirit of justice, has a hard time fighting off the voices when you take him closer to the end in the Legacy DLC. We can safely assume that these voices are the suggestions of Corypheus. Over time, Corypheus was able to manipulate Anders into doing the unthinkable, which became a major factor into starting the war between mages and Templars. The evidence. So I already know what some of you are thinking, but my hawk didn't take Anders with me to find Corypheus, which is probably true, you didn't take Anders, but you didn't play as Hawk, you played as Varric's version of Hawk, and it appears that the real Hawk did take Anders, or at least a Hawk that romanced him. Solusofthenight mentioned in a follow-up PM that if romanced, Hawk says this about Anders and Corypheus.
I couldn't risk exposing him to whatever they're going through. It went poorly the first time we met Corypheus. I'm never really happy leaving Anders alone. But once I realized wardens were acting strangely, I had no choice. I've seen Corypheus affect Anders' mind before. If he was involved, I couldn't risk it happening again.
The game also acts like Varric went on to see Corypheus die, but you didn't have to bring him along to the final battle either. It's not a stretch of the imagination to believe that Anders went along no matter what as well. But if that doesn't sell you on Anders being there, let's just assume for a second that he wasn't. Solusofthenight also helpfully mentions this. We don't know what the range limit of Corypheus' mind manipulation and possession is. We know the possession is at least far enough to go across rooms, but the mind manipulation is trickier. With help from a demon, the range managed to encompass all of Orlais, but before that the range seems to have been small, though large enough to unintentionally draw people. Even if Anders wasn't there, it's possible that Corypheus targeted him and control him from afar. Which you may ask, if that's true, then why Anders? Other than him being a warden, Anders isn't some unknown person. He has been a huge help to Ferelden refugees, he mentions doing a lot of work in the Mage Underground, and he talks about writing many manifestos to pass out to others about mage freedoms. Hawk can even find rough drafts of this in their home, and you can read a copy of it in Dragon Age Inquisition that a mage has kept all that time to read over and over again. Even before the Chantry was destroyed, Anders was something of a local hero to mage rights. Someone like Corypheus, who would have to go through underground means to begin his ascent to godhood, would probably have heard of him in the meantime. If anything, Samson, someone who Corypheus did end up hiring, was more of a nobody than Anders was. The rebuttal. So obviously a major rebuttal against this theory is that it's just ridiculous and an overly complicated plot point that would be poorly explained if true. But that's no fun, so let's just move on. Let's jump back to the why real quick. So in this theory, Corypheus does all of this to cause chaos. And it does, and that still holds true, but it only really causes chaos in Kirkwall. The Mage-Templar War didn't start because of Kirkwall. Now, it didn't help it, but it didn't start it either. The destruction of the Kirkwall Chantry was a symbol. It got mages thinking that perhaps they could rise up against their Templar oppressors, and the Templars began to think that the mages were out of control and more needed to be done. Now, some circles reacted to this by tightening their grip, but others didn't do much at all. It wasn't until the fact that a cure for tranquility was found and that the Seekers of Truth knew about it the entire time that the mages began to rebel, which is all deeply explained in the Book of Sunder if you're curious to learn more about this event, but we don't really have enough time, so we're just gonna move on. So if Corypheus wanted to cause chaos in the south, Anders wasn't exactly the prime target, as the mages already had a reason to rebel due to their oppressed history. But one side was still trying to work things out, willing to cooperate with the mages. That side needed to be coerced into rebellion. And it was the Templars. And sure enough, in Dragon Age Inquisition, we find that Corypheus is behind the leader of the Templar Rebellion. Well, the second leader. The first one was killed by Cole for various reasons, but that's another Asunder thing. But the second leader, that one's on Corypheus. So, other proof against this. And here's kind of why I like this theory, even though it's a little bit crazy. I can't come up with a strong rebuttal against it. This is largely in part because Dragon Age 2 format is it being one of Varric's stories, leaving so much room to speculate and assume things are wrong due to Varric not knowing the information. Timing is a huge issue here. As the Legacy DLC can be done in any act of DA2, it's possible to have already completed Anders' personal quest of placing explosives in the Chantry when you go off hunting for Corypheus. Granted, it should be noted that we technically didn't play as Hawk, we play as Varric's version of Hawk, particularly aimed to Cassandra. As the whole story of Dragon Age 2 is being told through Varric and in the overarching narrative of the game, Legacy is Cassandra interrupting his story and demanding to know what happened in the Vinmark Mountains, it's possible that Legacy does have a set time period and could be before Anders decided to blow up the Chantry. Varric wouldn't know that Anders was manipulated by Corypheus and wouldn't be able to express that to Cassandra, so we don't know either. And that, dear patrons, is all that I can think to say on this theory. Huge thank you to Solusofthenight, who was kind enough to send me their theory and then allow me to make a video on it, and who also gave me a lot of insightful comments on this subject. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory? Feel free to tweet me at @GilderThalon on Twitter or send a PM to user Galenon on Reddit. Darest all.